Welcome once again to Character Study. I am John Fortt, back with David Tieche, and we are talking about people in the Bible, their relationship with God, their character, and what that reveals about how we relate to God, how God relates to us. I'm a journalist. Dave, you're a pastor, and we've walked through the story of Abraham, not just through his perspective, but talked about the character of Abraham, Sarah, Hagar, Lot,
Isaac,
Isaac,
Lot's wife.
Lot's wife.
Yeah,
I think that's everybody.
I think that is. I think
Yeah.
we got through. Well, it's not everybody in the Bible, just everybody in this Genesis story, or
All
the
the
major characters,
all the
movie,
mainish characters,
all the main characters, right?
and people who were turned into seasoning.
Lot's wife. Lot's last name is McCormick.
That's right.
Oh no, that's not a good joke. Is there a better joke? Can we workshop that right now?
It wouldn't be kosher.
Nice work. See, there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
All right, so this is kind of a summation, huh? Like, what big lessons would we learn from the story? Kind of like we saw the movie and now we're like debriefing it. Is that what we're doing?
I think so. Not quite like a Siskel and Ebert sort of thing,
Oh,
but a bit.
thumbs
right?
up, thumbs down. We could give each character a rating: thumbs up, thumbs down, good guy, bad guy. Yeah,
It's a very Gen X comment for me to make, but
it is. It's very. People are like Siskel Ebert.
Yeah. It's like Rotten Tomatoes if there were only 2 tomatoes in the whole world. So I enjoyed these conversations, of course, and going through this process with you. I guess the part that I didn't expect was how much the characters, my sense of the character of these people interacted with each other, right? How much, as we were talking about Abraham and what sort of a person he was, that overlapped with Sarah and the type of person she is. It overlapped with Lot and overlapped with the impact on Isaac. And
Yeah,
to me, character isn't really dependent on the actions of others. In a way, it's by definition independent of that. Who are you despite what goes on around you or despite what other people do or say?
Yeah.
But there was still, to me, what was revealed about character was revealed in the circumstances that a person faced and the actions of those around them through contrast or compliance.
I mean, is that really surprising though? I mean, think about like your relationships. Like, we are so relationally intertwined. We affect each other in ways that I don't even think we quite understand, you know? So that's not really that big of a surprise in some ways, because you know how much of an impact even small amounts of faithfulness. Like, I talk to people all the time and I'll say, like, tell me about your journey of faith. And they'll say things like, my grandmother. It was my grandmother. I watched her be a person of deep, incredible, steadfast faith. And even though I wandered this meandering route toward and away from religion, God, church, whatever it might be, I came back because my grandmother. It's like one single human can have like a dramatic, like life-changing impact on a person. That doesn't really super surprise me, that, you know, that their character impacts. In fact, if you think about that, like if you've ever had like a really good boss, and the change that it can make in a workplace, or like I think about, I was a teacher for years, a really good principal changes everything. And even a couple good teachers can change the entire, like almost tenor of an entire school. Just a couple. And so, you know, that makes sense to me in some ways, you know.
I hear that. I think what I'm saying in a way is the opposite. I think what I'm saying is, despite Abraham's character, Lot seemed to be immune.
Oh,
right. So, like, I think of you, you're my
the
best
negative
friend.
side of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think about the ways that you positively impacted my life.
You
Like,
say infect? You were going
I
to say
almost did.
infect. You were going to say infect.
Yeah. It's a positive infection, though. It's like a mild swelling, like Botox. No, but I don't think about who I am in contrast to Dave, right?
Yeah.
Like what my character is in contrast to, that never crosses my mind.
Sure.
So looking at Abraham and the ways that the decisions that he made and the values that he held were in contrast to some of the
Yeah.
people closest to him. That wasn't something that I expected in the way that it stands out to me
Mm.
in what we mind in these character studies.
Well, I mean, and that's the narrative structure of this thing, right? I think the story is meant for us to compare Abraham's reaction against these characters, like Lot's a clear foil, right? And the way that Sarah and Lot treat Hagar is a clear foil, like, because sometimes Abraham doesn't get it right, and so that Lot's wife is a clear foil. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a narrative instruction in this book that is also true. I think we're supposed to look at. I mean, well, let me ask you this: are we supposed to look at Abraham like the first bad prototype of the iPhone? You know what I mean? Is he like the first prototype of a person who actually does what Genesis is inviting us to do? The creation story, walk with God, be priests, be God's representatives, have his moral character, look like him, represent him well. He just does it like super bad, and then later on Jesus is like the perfect iPhone. This metaphor breaks down. I don't know if that'd be iPhone 16e or whatever. You're the tech reporter, not me. But you think that that's what's going on here? Like Abraham's just the first shoddy iPhone, but man, it's got some neat features, and let's pay attention compared to, I don't
Maybe.
know.
I don't have the answer here, but I tend to think of Abraham more like caveman Einstein, right? Because you ever think about like so much of what seems smart to us now is built on the tools that we have available. Like we've got computers,
Sure.
we've got like paper and pens, we've got the wheel, right? Like all these things that are easier to build on. But what if you're a caveman and you're really freaking brilliant? Like how does that come across? And so Abraham didn't have the scriptures. He didn't have
No.
like these titans of the faith to
Right.
look back on, or like 10 commandments to be like, oh, well, maybe don't pretend she's your sister. Like he didn't have any of those
Right. No,
precedents,
seriously, right.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's flying blind in some ways.
Like his conversations with God were some of the first deep conversations with God, like
Right.
first ones that human beings had ever. Like Adam and Eve had some conversation, but it seemed more, yeah, yeah. As opposed to, like let's dive deeper into that. Let me come over to your house and eat some
Right.
bread,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
who did that with God before? It's like a dinner party with God.
Right.
That's huge. He had God over. That's what did
That's
you
true.
do this weekend?
I know.
I don't
I
know.
know.
Watch the show. How about you? God came over. What? With a
Yeah.
+2. So, so to me, Abraham's like faith caveman Einstein. Like, boy, if he had had all the tools of the New Testament, imagine what kind
Sure.
of a prophet or whatever he would have been. But he was like, he had flint and stone tools,
Yeah.
and somehow, right, he managed to thrive in his relationship with God.
No, that's really, I love that. Well, which means that the principle, I think, and I do think that Abraham is, like you said, that he is flying blind. I think about what he doesn't know about God. I mean, there's so much. Like even in the next chapter that we'll look at some point, Exodus and Moses, what we learn about Moses. Moses has so much more information. In fact, God even says, "I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." So he's referring back to the previous chapters of the story. Moses has all that information to like collate and go, okay, I don't know a ton about you, but you, at least I know this. You're anchored in history to these people, and the way you dealt with them is the way you're going to deal with me. That kind of thing.
Now
So,
that you mention it, I just have to put my ask in before we get to Moses. We have to get to Jacob and Joseph. I
oh,
mean,
we're going to go
because
chronological. I didn't know if we were going to skip or like go
I don't
New
know either.
Testament. I didn't know what we're going to do.
This is is it a democracy?
The
It's
Bible is a big book. We
are we
can
in?
do whatever we want. We could go New Testament. We could go interactions with Jesus. We could do apostles. We could go anywhere we want, John.
But Jacob and Joseph are two of my faves.
Sure. Okay.
Just there's so much mess in there. Like
Joseph is great. I'm not sure I like Jacob that much.
I'm not saying I like them as people
You're just saying it's
necessarily,
interesting story, interesting narrative.
even though I'll admit I do. Like by nature, I'm a little bit of a tricky person,
Yeah.
as you know well. but like I relate to Jacob deeply,
Okay.
just as somebody who's naturally, and this is horrible to say, but as somebody who's naturally manipulative, right? Like in my flesh, I try to get people to think or do what,
Sure.
right? And that's very much who
That's
Jacob and
Jacob. Yeah.
Rebecca, right? And Laban, and just how all of
Oh
that
yeah.
plays out. It's like, oh my goodness.
Well,
And then
you think Jacob's a good manipulator? Laban takes him to task. Laban's like playing 3D Jedi chess.
and then
Yeah.
right, what happens with Jacob's kids tricking him, right? So that whole
Yeah.
what you sow and then what you
Oof.
reap, that it's tragic. And then with Joseph kind of tricking his brothers back, but like
Yeah.
for a reason. It's like, wow, that the
Yeah.
depth of you know deception, manipulation, search for truth, your enduring character and relationship with God, and how that, the purpose behind why you're doing what I'm really eager to
Oh,
unpack that.
all right.
And
Maybe we just keep going through Genesis. That's fine.
you
We've got
know
we've got we've got time. We can do
we don't
this.
have to decide right here on the
We,
podcast,
we don't. We
but
don't.
I
But
was just making my
it does
case.
make sense that we would
I'm not trying
continue
to
to.
manipulate you. I'm not trying to, but I am
I'm
actually.
amenable. I don't. There's no bad places to go.
Yeah,
Scripture is
it's a
fine.
pretty good. Yeah, the Bible's pretty good. It's
Yeah.
pretty good, like all the way through.
Yeah, there's some parts we probably won't spend a lot of time on, though. But just so we're clear. Yeah,
Leviticus. Yeah.
but yeah, so yeah, we'll get to those characters in a second, because I think that because Abraham really is a father of the faith, right? He is referenced in the Old and the New more than any other character. He is seen as the prototypical kind of father of the faith. And the writers, the New Testament, the Old Testament, the rest of the Old Testament, they really look to Abraham as, like, if you had a Mount Rushmore of people in the Bible who are not like members of the Trinity, right? Abraham is for sure on Mount. He's George Washington.
Hmm.
There's no doubt. Um, Moses, David. Even if you have the entire Old and New Testament, Abraham's for sure on Mount Rushmore. He is one of the most important characters in the entire scriptures. So, and I think it's because he shows us a little bit about what it means to look and walk with God in a meaningful way. So,
For sure. Now, if you will indulge me, let's talk about women.
oh,
Specifically, Sarah, Hagar,
mm-hmm,
Lot's wife.
mm-hmm,
So in this series, we spent about half of the time trying to center
yeah,
those women and look at who they are and what the scripture reveals about their challenges, how they responded to them, how they related to God or not through them. And all three are very different.
yeah. There's a lot. Well, I wrote little taglines. I was trying to think like, there used to be an app that you and I in the mid 2000s used called Twitter, in which you only had 120 characters to express an idea. And the idea was like tercity, and so I try, and you're better than this because you're a poet. But like headlines, almost like headlines for their lives. And so I tried to write some headlines for their lives. And I think Sarah's kind of a mix. Hagar, I think, is deeply sympathetic in the scriptures, and Lot's wife is almost like an instruction, like a moral instruction, like a warning.
Mm.
So with Sarah, I wrote like, don't lie to God, girl. But there's also a sense of like God's promises, even though they're delayed, will come true. So you can trust him.
So with Sarah, I know that we had a conversation early on. I think it was in the Sarah episode where we talk about, Sarah laughed, and it was like, oh, are you laughing? Oh, I didn't laugh.
Yeah, I didn't love you.
But like Abraham laughed. A
And he did.
little bit after that, we never talk about that. It's like, hold on a second. How come the woman gets called on the carpet for laughing, and then the man can laugh, and it's like, oh, ha ha ha! It's a funny joke when Abraham laughs, but when Sarah laughs, we're wagging the finger. But what's good about Sarah when you look at Sarah as a partner in the promise? As I think about B and Jay Z, O3 Bonnie and Clyde, ride or die. She's Abraham's ride or die, right? Like he's heading out there, doing these wild things, going to war, following God, and she's not ever like, she doesn't do a Job's wife and be like, okay, that's enough, Abraham. It's time to settle down, do some nesting. We're going to put some pictures up, and we're going to stop all of this nomadic whatever.
Yeah, no, I would think about what she also went through. I mean, like his trading of her to the Egyptian king, that was, that's not fair. I mean, it kind of made sense, I guess, in the way, but that's not good. God actually, and what did she see? She's put in this harem, and God goes and intervenes and gets her out of it because she's not Egyptian king's wife. He's not named. She's Abraham's wife. And so God, she sees herself put in a bad situation, and then God comes and intervenes miraculously to get her out of it. That had to have been faith building. I don't know what her prayers were like, but I bet it was like, this is messed up. There's some other messed up stuff. Like it takes forever. They get promised a kid and it takes like more than a decade. That's a really long time to wait. And God keeps showing up to her and to her husband to reassure her when their faith starts running out. I think that's also faith building, that God's going to show up and actually come to your house, come to your tent, and give you some words to keep you going, to remind you that this is a God who keeps his promises. She messes up too. I mean, she lets jealousy and bitterness, which I get. I mean, when the dream's deferred, it's bad. It hurts, and so there's that aspect to it, and I think that she's humanized in that.
It seems like with the Hagar situation, although Hagar is sympathetic, I want to put that out there. It seems like what Sarah felt happened was that once Hagar had a son, she was becoming perhaps the primary wife.
Right.
Despite the fact that she was a servant, and despite the fact that it was her idea for Hagar to be in position to have the kid. So I'm not sure what Abraham did or didn't do to manage that situation, but it sounds like maybe he could have been better with his affirmations or with flowers or with date nights, right? After Hagar.
Well, I mean, the whole story really does show us Abraham's passivity, and that's always bad. Like passivity in the face of bad things is always bad in the Bible. We learned that with Adam. Adam's passive. He doesn't like stand up. He doesn't like, hey, Eve, let's run this by God. I'm sure he's got some thoughts on it. The passivity of Abraham in the story is pretty gross. And so that could have translated into other aspects of it. Polygamy is always a bad idea. Another message. Always a bad idea.
Always, you're saying? Always, like
always. It's always a bad idea.
Right, okay.
And I know there's polygamy here, and this is an ancient culture, but it's so awful and messy. There's no way you can come away reading the biblical narrative and be like, I think polygamy is a good idea. It's just terrible.
Right. It's back, I think, under a different name. What are people calling it?
Polyamory.
Polyamory.
Oh, yeah. No, it doesn't work. Never going to work.
Yeah, like
never going to work.
Whenever your girlfriend says, "I want another boyfriend," It's like, no, I'd prefer not to do that.
I think which shows us something about not to be weird, but God's covenantal love. He's just like, no, he says often, I'm a jealous God, and jealous isn't like petty, meaning like our love is exclusive. Like no other gods before me. You don't have me and other gods. It's you and me. And it's you and me, ride or die, Bonnie and Clyde, 03, right? That's the kind of thing. And I think that plays out in this marriage relationship. And man, it's super destructive. So, and we see the sin pattern. Sarah saw that, she desired, she took, and it's just all, it's all bad.
Yeah. Yeah. But Sarah's great, right? Like
for sure.
Sarah
puts up with
Sarah sticks with Abraham. Sarah sticks with the promise.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah apparently, after the whole Isaac fiasco, she didn't completely lose it. We don't hear about Abraham having to pay spousal support.
So, I wonder how that conversation went. Don't you? Hey, Mom, let me tell you what just happened. It was crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Did they keep it from Sarah for a
For
while.
how long?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all questions I wonder.
Yeah. Maybe
But
at
the Bible
Thanksgiving a
doesn't
couple
tell us
years
that, though.
later,
The
it's
Bible
like, "Oh,
doesn't
remember that time when Dad, when you almost killed me?" I'm like, "Oh, wait, we
the
did."
Bible doesn't tell us that because I
You
guess it's not
know?
important to the narrative. So the Bible wants us to see certain things, and that's just one we're gonna have to wonder about.
Yeah, for sure.
Hagar, um, I wrote as the tagline, in your most desperate moments, when everything falls apart, God sees you. She names God the one who sees.
Mm.
God comes to her and asks her, where are you going? Which I think is a nice way of, whenever God asks questions, it's usually not because he needs information. He's asking questions for a relationship. Like, where are you, Adam and Eve? Like, where are you? Where are you going? Where have you come from? You know, those kind of questions are trying to get Hagar to see her past and what she's trying to accomplish. And God shows up, and in a desperate moment where she can't even bear to look at her own kid as they're going to starve to death in the wilderness. God takes her. And so that's a big deal too. I'm deeply sympathetic to Hagar. Did we talk about this? Did we talk about, I remember in seminary, my professor, Gary Bashirs, was like, hey, there's some, not a small amount of evidence that Hagar would have been what you and I would call today a sex trafficked victim. Did we talk about that?
We did.
Okay. So that's I mean, whether or not that is a good designation to go upon ancient people, because look, the ancient world is very different. I understand that. But whether or not that's helpful or not, it can lead to some sympathy for us with Hagar about the desperate situation she's in, how powerless she really is. She's impregnated against her will. The child is kind of de facto like not hers, you know. So there's a lot going on here.
Now, we don't
Um,
technically know that it's against her will.
I mean, she didn't have a choice in the matter and the decision.
Well, we know, right, that Abraham is wealthy and that um, Hagar is part of the
Tribe, his
tribe.
family tribe.
Yeah. And we might presume that being married, that polygamy at the time was not outside of the norm
Yeah, it seems like it
for
wasn't. Yeah,
for men who had a lot of money.
right.
And so marrying someone of that stature might not have been, it might not have been seen as a bad option. So I mean, this is all very awkward to say, and certainly
Well,
probably,
such a different culture too. I
yeah,
mean, yeah,
under
so
today's
so
standards this is
so
bad,
different.
just like putting allowing Sarah to be in the harem of Pharaoh is bad.
Right,
um
right,
yeah, like just sort of like women as chattel bad.
right.
I guess what I'm trying to articulate is that from within that culture and society, among the options that a young woman might have had, maybe this one wouldn't seem so bad.
Yeah, you get protection. You get provision in a world full of that's very harsh. I think we
Until you
underestimate
don't, right? Until the Sarah
until
thing
you
happens
don't.
and
Yeah.
she's like, "You know what? I actually want out of here at the risk of my death."
Well, you see this all the time. As we keep reading the Old Testament, you're going to see women who, if their husband dies or if their sons die, they are absolutely destitute. They have no options. There's no social security nets. There's no Medicare. There's no welfare. There's no social programs. It's death in the desert. So there's desperation. You know, we see that again and again and again through the Old Testament. It's really harsh out there. And we just dramatically underestimate how harsh and awful the world is out there in the ancient world. So I think that there's that too.
But as you said, Hagar is not only sympathetic, but frankly, kind of an example of faith,
100%.
because in spite of the physical situation and emotional situation that she finds herself in, she chooses God's spiritual promise
Yeah.
of what will be over the very present evidence of what is.
Yeah. Well, and I work a lot with teenagers, and one of the things that Hagar's story really helps with, and adults too, but especially with teenagers, is like, where are you going and where are you from?
Mm.
Is a powerful question for teenagers. Like, what's happened in your life that makes you run, and where are you running to? And sometimes teenagers can't even articulate that, but they understand there's some stuff in my past I'm trying to get away from, and I don't even know how to do it. And then that God shows up and asks that shows his deep, deep care for our stories and our future. And then his invitation to, listen to him and to be with him. And sometimes what he asks of us is not easy. I mean, she has to return back to what you and I would call not a great environment. We might call it toxic, she's got to face that. And I never quite understood that. Is like, is what's ahead of her so bad that God puts her back into safety, even if it's not ideal? I'm not sure, but and the teenagers really understand that they really want a God who sees them. And I think adults do too, so that matters.
Okay. And Lot's wife.
Not a whole lot here in the narrative. We don't get a ton, but here's what I wrote, and I'd love your thoughts on it. Your heart reveals the deepest parts of you. What I mean by that is she looked because that's where her heart was, right? And it was for Sodom. It was for this. She wanted to go back, and Lot did too, so that was a tragedy. I think her life is just a tragedy. It's a warning. And that's what I put. I don't know. What would you put?
Boy, I can't do that level, your level of concise, accurate poetry and assessment on the spot. But I do think of Lot's wife as being a reflection of Lot's values.
Yeah. I think that's
Because
how we're supposed to see it, right?
right?
Yeah, I think so.
So like, this is the person you chose, right? This is where you were pulled and where you chose to continue to be pulled.
Right.
And so one imagines that because from early on we see that Lot wants what's material, what's worldly,
Yeah.
what the world sees as good, that we're not surprised that his wife was fond of the lifestyle in this place where God said, no, I'm going to destroy it. And so I think when I think about Sarah, Hagar, Lot's wife, and then all of the characters in this study, I think, who am I most like? Like by nature, by evidence, who am I most like? And I think the Lot's wife is at the far end of the spectrum here.
Yeah.
Right? Because she takes the most clear and decisive action away from what God has said to do.
Right. She directly disobeys.
Yes.
Directly. There was one clear instruction: leave, do not look back, do not look back. And she looks back. So that's a direct disobedience.
And Lot and his daughters don't physically look back, but they're
But they look back.
internally struggling and making certain compromises that one could argue do ultimately end up, it sounds like, destroying them. So it's a delayed saltification,
Yeah.
right, that they go through. But I mean, to me, the reason why, and we had the whole horror movie comparison here to what happens in the destruction of Sodom and what happens to Lot and his daughters after. What makes a horror movie scary is the idea that it could happen to you.
Yeah.
The relatability.
Sure.
And so, I mean, there have been times in my life when I've looked back, and there have been times in my life when I've tried to bargain with God about how not to completely let go of some things that God is challenging me to abandon. And who among us can say that we haven't done that, right? Like Abraham does it on Lot's behalf. He's sort of going back and forth with God about, do you really have to destroy the whole thing? He doesn't live there. He just cares about somebody who does. And so he's going back and forth. But how often have we in our prayers and wrestlings with God actually tried to preserve some bit of something that God is trying to stamp out in our lives? And so, so part of what makes these flawed characters powerful for me is the amount of me that I see in them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if Lot's wife is a reflection of Lot, the tagline I wrote for Lot, and I don't know, I'm interested to hear your thoughts, was your environment and the people around you can form you or malform you. Just, I mean, that's kind of Lot didn't understand how malformed he was, how away from Yahweh and his character and his values, how much this city, which cared nothing for God, had sunk into his very character like a toxic sludge and changed his DNA, away from a person who, like, because Abraham's position towards Sodom and Gomorrah was not like, oh, keep it, I really like it. It was, there are people in here that really matter to you, God, and we got, you know. So that's lots of cautionary tale as well. And he's anti-Abraham as well. He's the opposite of Abraham, someone who does not really seem, he's so malformed by the end. His actions and the actions of his daughter and his wife are all, none of them are good. There's zero good. It's all malformation,
Well, but he's close, right? Like, he does follow Abraham in the first place. So Abraham has faith in God, and that's why he leaves where he leaves Ur.
Yeah,
Right?
right,
Maybe Lot has faith in Abraham, and that's why he leaves Ur.
right.
It's not explained exactly why, if I remember correctly, but the implication to me seems to be Lot's going with Abraham because he seems to believe this guy's got something special.
Yeah.
So rather than stay here with the clan, I'm gonna go with him.
And Lot's close because Abraham is close. I mean, think about it. We talked about it. He gets rescued multiple times by Abraham. Abraham is his, like, in a sense, like a big brother or those kinds of things. But in the end, Abraham's faith doesn't transfer to Lot, and Lot doesn't choose it, that's the cautionary tale, I think. Just because you're close to people who are deeply religious and following God, I don't, it's up to us individually, right? Like, I can't, in
But
some ways.
I think Lot qualifies as church going under today's standards, right? Like,
Yeah,
Lot is not a stranger to the angels. He
correct.
knows how to talk to the angels.
Right,
He
right,
cares about their well-being. He doesn't belong in Sodom, right?
right.
Like, he's there, he likes it, but he doesn't belong there.
Yeah,
Like, even the value struggle that he's going through, he's trying not to leave, but he definitely doesn't talk like the people there.
right,
So to me, that makes Lot scarier, right? Because
right,
Lot is like, Lot's a deacon, right? Like, this is Abraham's nephew. Good things are happening to him. People who look at Lot's life say, "Oh, look, this guy's blessed and highly favored.
right.
Look
And
how
yet,
God saved him
yeah,
from the kings." And it's true, God did use Abraham to save him, but and then Lot seems to have prospered afterward, and Lot recognizes God when God shows up. But at the crucial moments, Lot is maybe, and maybe not just maybe, trying to negotiate in the wrong direction for the wrong reasons.
yeah. What's that expression? If you straddle a fence, you're not on one side, you're not on the other, and it's really uncomfortable in the middle. You know what I mean? That the sense that he's trying to straddle. And again, this goes back to the kind of jealousy of God here. It's no other gods before me, right? Like, you listen, you know what I mean? There's a sense in which you've got to choose your allegiances. And Abraham shows those allegiances pretty clearly in some beautiful ways. He shows his deep trust, and then God shows up and shows his allegiance to Abraham over and over again. They're ride or dies. And with Lot, you do not get the sense he's a ride or die homie with Yahweh. You just, he's a ride or die with Abraham, and Abraham's definitely his ride or die. Abraham shows the kind of faithfulness to Lot that Yahweh showed to Abraham, right? But Lot doesn't reciprocate that, and Lot's wife is kind of I think a ping back to show just how, and his daughters too, just how deep this corruption or malformation. And you're right, it's scary. Yeah, and we see, look, not to be super weird, but we see this all the time. Just because somebody goes to church or is around religious people doesn't mean that they're actively walking or have any deep loyalty or allegiance
Or
to
even just because miracles happen to or around them. I mean,
yeah.
can you imagine the flex when Lot comes back alive?
From the raid.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Like, boy, look at this guy. Here
And he didn't realize what the source of that was. He might have thought, oh, I'm special, or Abraham's cool. He didn't realize, no, Yahweh rescued me for a reason, and I'm supposed to be a preserving agent in a world full of people who have no allegiance to Yahweh. I can be that. I mean, that's the Genesis 3 mandate, to be in deep, thick relationship, to walk with God, and to be his priest, to work and keep the garden, which is priestly language. We're supposed to be priests, which means we represent God to the people and the people to God, right? And we have his character, and Lot does not. And Abraham gets this right way more. I mean, he's way more of a prototype. And you're right, it is scarier. Honestly, it is scarier.
Abraham's clutch. You know, he's Mahomes, he's Brady, right? Like he doesn't complete every pass, but on the drives that matter, when the game is on the line. I mean, I know it's not football season, but you know.
So that makes Lot like what, Jake Talome.
Well, I mean, let's be fair. He's a known named quarterback. He just never won the big one.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying he's Dan Marino or anything.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I'm not saying that, because we don't have any really great Lot plays in the Bible. Like, wow, Lot really.
We don't. We don't.
But he was on the field.
Sure.
And his name got called a few times.
Yeah. Well, those are good things. Yeah, I wrote a book on this, and we have this thing on my refrigerator. I printed out these cards about the 4 main lessons of Abraham's life, and I wanted to show. I put them on my fridge because my kids were like 13 and 12 and 14 when I wrote the book. You know, because they were getting ready to go into high school. It's like, so what's the major lessons? And the whole idea is that Abraham shows us what it looks like to have a vibrant relationship, to love God, because love God's such an amorphous term. Like even the word love is amorphous. It's weird. What does it mean to love God? And I think Abraham did it. So the first thing was like, trust God even when life doesn't make sense, and then be loyal even if it costs you. This is the seek justice, do what's right, and set things right if you can. And then the last one, this is kind of Abraham and Isaac, the expect God to be good even when life falls apart. Wow. So we put those on our fridge just as kind of life lessons about what it looks like, because Abraham is a prototype. It's a flawed prototype, and he gets it a lot wrong. Jesus is going to do all those things that I just said perfectly. Abraham gets it right some of the time. Sometimes he gets it pretty right, and sometimes he doesn't. But that's kind of the term in Old Testament theology is Abrahamic righteousness. Like and then there's the Mosaic righteousness under the law. Then Jesus is like, oh, no, follow me. And then Jesus does it perfectly. So Jesus does all those things perfectly. And it just helped me kind of codify what it looks like for me to actually love God. You know, trust him when it doesn't make sense. Be loyal, have allegiance to him alone, even if it costs me. To love justice and to seek justice, to do what's right, to set things right if I can. And then expect God to be good. When life falls apart, God sees, God's going to move, and he's going to help put things back together, even if I cannot see possibly the way out of this one, you know? So
I think that's a fantastic place to leave it for this first season.
Ooh, season 1. There's no cliffhanger, John. There's no cliffhanger. We need a cliffhanger.
We did. We gave him a little, maybe Jacob and Joseph.
Yeah.
You know, some tricky stuff going on.
Ooh.
Stay tuned to find out what
happens next in Bible. All right, man. Well, this is super fun.
Great book. Yeah, super fun. Until next time.